Hey, welcome everyone. I think we will make a start. I know Kevin is going to be a little bit late, and not sure about Steve, but it's time. So I'll open the meeting. A beautiful day in Taupō. A bit brisk, but it was also a bit brisk in Tikawiti when I left this morning. So, great spell of weather, and no gumboots needed at the field days this year. Hey, we'll open with the opening karakia.
O te whenua, tuia ki te mana o te tangata, tuia ki te pono, te aroha, kia piki, kia iki, ki te taumata, huie taikie.
Kia ora everyone. So we have an apology from Rachel Cameron, who can't be here today, and an apology from Kevin for lateness. So would someone like to move those received? Thank you. Councillor Foreman, seconded Councillor Greenslade. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Are there any conflicts of interest to do with today's agenda anyone would like to declare? If not, we've had no public forum, no requests. So, and I know Jason is going to be a little bit late from Unison. So we'll go and look at the minutes of the previous meeting to confirm those. Are there any points of clarification anyone wants to raise?
There was only one point of clarification, Chair, and I read it again, and I probably was not listening was the truth of it. I thought that the Acacia Bay trial was going to be a range of those different meters, but when I read the minutes, it says that it's going to be just the advanced metering infrastructure. So, yeah, I just felt a little concerned. I couldn't see the point of just trialling one meter when we had three that we could trial. Maybe Mr. Hale might like to comment on that.
Through the chair, I'm just trying to recall the conversations that we had without referring to the minutes.
It was page 8, yeah. It was page 8. It was Tom. It was Tom Swindell,
yep.
And he came and brought us the meters in. And I just was on the understanding that it was going to be the 3 different meters that they were going to trial to see which one worked best for them. But when I read the minutes, I obviously wasn't listening properly enough, and they're only going to trial the advanced metering one, which is the one with the software and so forth. So I just, yeah, would have liked to have seen all the meters trialled, not just one. Just clarification, really, that's all.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Chair, I think we could probably follow that up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
follow that up.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think Joe might have an answer.
I'm not Tom, but I'm pretty sure that we already have those other types in place at the sites where we already have metering in place. So this is kind of the third one that we're adding to. We already have some info, I think.
Thank you very much, Joe. That definitely probably is what I had heard. Yep, that's what's happened. Thank you. Thank you.
Cool, thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Joe. Any other matters of clarification? If not, would someone like to move those? Move Councillor Greenslade, seconder Councillor Campbell. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay. We haven't got Unison here. Did you want?
Jason's here.
Oh, Jason is here. Oh, welcome, Jason. Sorry. Please come and we look forward to receiving your presentation. Thank you. Have you got the presentation loaded?
Yeah.
If you would take just at the end there, thanks, Jason. So welcome, Jason, and it's great to have someone from a very regulated industry. I sit on a trust that owns the Lions Company just over there, so I know all about some of the challenges of regulating network companies, so great to have you here.
Thanks, Brian. Kia ora koutou, ko Jason Larkin, tōko ingoa. Hi, I'm Jason Larkin, Group General Manager, Customer, Commercial and Regulatory at Unison Networks. And look, appreciate the opportunity to come and share some of our experience with more than 15 years now under Commerce Commission regulation. Yeah, I'm keen to keep it fairly informal and provide an opportunity really for the committee to ask any questions that might be on your mind or things that you'd like to understand a bit more about in the general context of economic regulation of infrastructure by the Commerce Commission. So I'll kick into it. So look, these are just the themes I'll go through, but I will try and skip through it fairly quickly. So a little bit of just a general background to regulation, and then more directly our experience sort of in electricity and what that's meant for our business, our service and our consumers. And then I'll move through to talking about what that can mean for, I think, the local government context where there are many similarities with water entities and water infrastructure. Yes, as I said, there are quite some similarities. Water and power are natural monopolies that are capital intensive, and regulation is really there to ultimately protect consumers, both in terms of service quality, but also price, in a setting where there isn't competition. And it also strives to have a long-term focus, so really promote the long-term benefit for consumers. And again, there is, I think, quite some similarity between local government's challenges for its services in the sunk costs and public accountability and asset management that goes along with that. Look, most of you know, and some better than others perhaps, where electricity distribution sits in the electricity or energy value chain. And it is a sector that's been progressively regulated or deregulated, you could argue, since the 1990s, although we certainly feel like we're going through a process of re-regulation at the moment. And yeah, obviously distributors are the sort of local entities that supply power to homes and businesses in our communities. And obviously a lot of our focus is around reliability as well as efficient investment, and more recently enabling the decarbonisation of our economy. Why is regulation necessary? I guess in the minds of government and others, it is a area where monopolies naturally lack competition, and so there is that need for consumer protection, but it's important that it balances affordability and, in the case of electricity, reliability. Obviously with water you also have some quality dimensions, and it can promote sort of best practice through benchmarking, but ultimately it's looking for outcomes and focusing on putting in place the right incentives for those, as opposed to focusing on prescriptive inputs. So again, electricity, we have multiple regulators. The first and foremost, so the Commerce Commission, in terms of regulating the economic aspects of the service, so price and quality, whereas the Electricity Authority oversees the wider electricity market and its operation, including wholesale, retail, but also the system rules that ensure that system remains reliable. There can be benefits from separation of some functions, and we've seen how electricity has been sort of vertically disaggregated over 30 years of regulation. But that also provides not only regulatory clarity, but also for businesses quite some clarity around what their core purpose and scope is. It is very important to maintain engagement, particularly through the regulatory and finance teams, with the key regulators in the sector. So electricity ultimately is regulated by something called input methodologies, and it will no doubt be a feature of water regulation over time. And essentially what they're intended to do in terms of economic regulation is providing a standard framework for how revenues are set and returns for the owners of that infrastructure, which gives predictability, particularly for consumers in terms of pricing. It does influence the financial outcomes for business and more specifically accounting, capitalisation and financial modelling that is crucial for business decisions. By applying it across the sector, again, it ensures consistency and enables that benchmarking and transparency amongst entities, and through that, the intent is that best practice can flow to all entities in the sector and give those longer term outcomes for consumers. But ultimately, there is some judgment required, but within clear rules. And again, that's where it's important to understand those rules and proactively engage with the regulator to ensure they're being correctly interpreted and applied. So although water initially won't be under price quality regulation, I thought I'd just share a little bit about what that looks like. It could be something that comes further down the track. Essentially it sets revenue paths or limits alongside price and quality paths, and it does that at a sector level, preferentially rather than at an individual price control, because that is so if you like a higher cost approach to regulation. It ensures that reliability standards in the case of electricity are achieved, so things like outages to be an indicator of core network performance, alongside the cost control that revenue path applies. There are also multi-year revenue paths, so each 5 years in electricity there is essentially a review and reset of those quality benchmarks and those revenues based on that input methodology, which aims to determine what is a reasonable cost of capital or regulatory return for regulatory entities. What it sort of means is that there needs to be a focus on sort of long-term planning to ensure that investment plans are sustainable and balance that cost and quality to achieve and maintain those thresholds that the Commerce Commission sets. Perhaps more directly relevant to water entities, as you move under the Commerce Commission's oversight, is firstly information disclosure and the public sort of transparency that goes along with that. And although Council is very used to public transparency and accountability, under the Commerce Commission, that is quite prescriptive in terms of the quality of information and including audit of that information. So what information disclosure does is enable transparency and accountability. It does mean that there needs to be good data governance and assurance, and again that's something generally driven through regulatory and finance teams to put governance around that, along with reconciliation reporting that does satisfy audit. Obviously by being disclosed publicly there is a reputational dimension, and through that disclosure and benchmarking it's intended to incentivise best practice and continuous improvement. From the Commerce Commission's point of view, efficiency is really at the heart of their approach to regulation in the interests or the long-term interests and benefit of consumers. And that requires infrastructure owners to balance cost, risk and performance while maintaining that efficiency. So some of the implications for regulated businesses There is complexity in the planning and forecasting that particularly finance teams need to manage. It's also important that financial models, comply with regulatory standards and ensure alignment with the Commerce Commission's requirements. And it really does mean that, across infrastructure organisations, there needs to be good collaboration, particularly between those that, plan and manage the assets, and those that need to finance that, as well as account for that to the regulator. And again, the regulator is looking for assurance, both at a governance level, but also at a management level, and uses tools such as audit to ensure that governance and oversight is there. Just a few learnings here, and then, as I say, some takeouts, particularly targeted at water. One of the key things is starting point is really important, particularly, as the regulatory regime, potentially may move in the longer term towards also price regulation, because that starting point sets the asset base, the valuation, which revenues will be set at in the future. But at the same time, even under a disclosure regime, that starting point is really important, because that will be the first set of not just accounts but other data that is disclosed, such as asset information, potentially also some customer billing data, and the importance, I guess, of that first data set being accurate, because all other data sets will be compared to that first data set and year to year. That's, I think, one of the key takeouts. Underpinning that is the importance of credible asset information in particular, including the financial and accounting information that's associated with those infrastructure assets. To achieve that, getting early advice and ongoing support, including third-party assurance, can essentially address the risk of starting off on the wrong foot. Regulators are sort of looking for credible plans to build confidence. And again, I think a really key takeout, and something I know councils are particularly good at, and certainly Unison as a local infrastructure provider here sees how well Taupō District Council does this, is ensuring that stakeholder input is informing asset management plans, investment plans. So good engagement with community, with stakeholders, with business, about investment plan, like those long-term investment plans and asset management plans, and some of the trade-offs that are, I guess, presented in those in terms of price and quality. Ensuring that asset management is also carried out in a systematic way is something that Commission is looking for, and so having an asset management system is very important as part of the overall management systems of any infrastructure entity, and something like ISO 55000, which is the international asset management standard, is something that carries a lot of weight with the Commission in terms of putting, I guess, confidence in the plans and information that it's presented with. And it is looking for, effective data and information management, and so having those capabilities in the business is also, very important. Data governance and data collection and data systems to manage that information is critical. And again, putting that in place is something where advice and support can be really useful. It's also important to remember that the regulatory regime, isn't something set in stone. The Commission is constantly reviewing it. It's required by law to do that at sort of minimum frequencies. So it's important to invest in engaging with the regulator to build those relationships, understand what their priorities, drivers and thinking is, and through those relationships also helping them understand some of the real world challenges that you as infrastructure governors need to, and managers need to navigate, and thereby hopefully promoting even more effective regulation through that ongoing relationship. Another key takeout is regulation sort of under the Commerce Commission's oversight. It's not just the job of the finance team or the regulatory team, it really is everybody's job in the business, whether it's people out in the field maintaining the assets, and the role that they play in collecting data about the condition of assets, through to the engineers doing the long-term investment plans, as well as those actually managing the funding and accounting around those plans. So that's I think something that sort of shouldn't be underestimated and really promoted from a governance level down as part of the culture. But there will be a handful of roles that will be specialists within the business that are also key, and it's important to ensure that you do have those, particularly around information disclosures. So regulatory accounting specialists, is something that you want to ensure that you have access to, as well as sort of specialist economic expertise. And again, it's a judgment for each entity to what extent those functions are in-house. Regulatory accounting is probably a must, I would almost say, whereas perhaps that specialist economic expertise is something you can bring in when the Commerce Commission is potentially looking at proposing changes. So again, just emphasising the importance of partnership. It is a long-term relationship once you're under the Commission, so investing in that through an open and trust-based relationship will promote better outcomes for not just the regulated entity, but for consumers in general. There is complexity, so that's something not to be overlooked. And again, through building relationships, not with the regulator, but also across the sector and sharing knowledge, can also ensure more efficient management and governance of infrastructure, and more efficient outcomes, which ultimately benefits consumers. There is a sort of overhead that goes with regulation, this additional workload, and it's not insignificant. We've touched on some of those specialist roles, and again, each regulated infrastructure entity kind of needs to find that sweet spot for itself in terms of its scale, as to how much of that it wants to have, as in-house functions, how much can potentially access through insourcing service providers, aggregating or collaborating with others in the sector, or outsourcing, which could even, letting some other larger entity provide some of the core management functions if those are things that you deem too costly and complex to have in-house. So last slide, key takeaways. It is a very structured framework that actually ultimately will make your infrastructure business and service better, and deliver those long-term benefits for consumers. So I think it is something to be embraced. And again, it's important to just keep top of mind what are those long-term or those key principles that underpin it, around long-term planning, investment, transparency, and the efficiency that the Commission is looking for, and that balance of cost, risk and performance, seeing it as that enabling structure, and investing in partnerships and relationships, both with the regulator and with your stakeholders, and importantly across the sector, or even cross-vector. There are other infrastructure areas such as electricity that can also assist with knowledge sharing, or even providing some functions that are not vector specific. So I'll leave it there and open it up to questions or discussions.
Thanks, Jason. I was really interested in your comments around the initial benchmarking. I imagine 15 years ago, because obviously the cost of delivering electricity to a city of like Taupō is quite different to Te Araroa on the coast. So you all start at different levels, and I imagine and water is probably very similar. That there's a whole lot of different costs. So what you're telling us here is that the real critical issue is the initial pricing, understanding your data sets and pricing. When you start with ComCom, that is your benchmark. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, that's right. That initial data set will obviously form your first disclosure, which is that first data point, and both your stakeholders and the Commission, are looking to build confidence in that data set, and the more accurate, robust, evidence-based it is on day one, the less likely it is to vary over time, which will build that confidence. Secondly, if and when the Commission looks to also, I guess, look at returns and potentially some form of pricing quality regulation, which it may do in course. I think if you look at electricity, that was the pathway. That sort of initial asset base that's established through that initial data set really forms the basis of what goes into the input methodologies to determine the regulatory allowance, as well as, again, the performance data, which will feed into any performance targets that you may have from day one or further down the track. And look, I think all infrastructure entities, have very passionate, committed people, great engineers, who know their networks. However, how that data around the condition of assets or performance of the overall network has been, I guess, captured over time and maintained may vary, between entities as well as between time periods of when assets were established within a single entity. It's, I guess, important to identify where your strengths are in data and where some of your gaps are and how you can close those gaps. And where you know those gaps and can't immediately close them, I think, again, in terms of that open and sort of trust-based relationship with the regulator, be upfront about these are gaps we've got or lower levels of confidence in this area of our data, and here's what we're doing to address that.
Cool, thanks. Councillor Foreman.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I'm wondering about those input methodologies and how long it took to get them right, or are they still kind of developing after 15 years?
Great question. They are still developing. The Commission, and I'm pretty sure that applies to all sectors where input methodologies are relevant, has a legislative obligation to review them at least every 7 years. We went through a review, we commenced about 3.5 years ago, finished about 18 months ago in electricity. It didn't see wholesale changes to them. It did address some shortcomings in the previous set by trying to provide more flexibility for infrastructure owners, which is a good thing. I think it recognised, particularly in electricity, but I'm sure water, with some of its challenges as well, is no different. We need to respond to a more dynamic environment, whether it's climate change, decarbonisation, electrification, water standards, whatever it might be. And so the Commission has tried to put ability in there to essentially revisit those price paths that gets locked in for 5 years, which is a great thing. At the same time, they're always looking to drive more efficiency, so they did lower the percentile, so where it felt it was reasonable for regulated electricity distributors to sit in the regulated cost of capital or return on investment. We expect that to be a continuing focus of the Commission, so probably a further reduction. So we're sitting at now what's called the 62% percentile, probably drop to the 50th percentile, I would say, next time they revisit this. What else have they done in terms of IM review this time around? There is still an efficiency factor in there, which can be applied at both an expenditure level or a revenue level, and essentially revenue and expenditure, the Commission tends to index to Consumer Price Index, CPI, but it has discretion to put an efficiency factor in there known as CPI minus X, and X is usually 1 or 2 or 3%. Obviously, if long run CPI is 2 to 3%, if they're giving you CPI minus 2 or 3, it basically means your costs in real terms are expected to decrease. So those are probably the key features of the input methodologies.
So then just like in your first 3 or so years, how did you find that kind of, like, was it a push to do what you needed to do within those input methodologies, or
look, we absolutely had challenges with data with some parts of our network. Where we'd acquired other network regions, and the previous network manager, being an overseas investor, maybe wasn't here for the long term, and there were a few gaps in the data, so that was a challenge. We also had some challenges in applying pricing, and the Commission did investigate that. And look, that's an ongoing feature. If the Commission really does maintain close scrutiny, and if it has any concerns, it raises those. And if it's not able to gain, I guess, comfort just through that informal conversation, it will open formal investigations. Doesn't mean anything's been done wrong. It just means they go through a structured process to identify are there issues and what are the appropriate remedies. Ultimately, in the interests of consumers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Just one question to close. Can you see the pricing methodology in water and wastewater becoming as complex as it is in electricity? I know that's crystal ball gazing, but it's so similar in terms of the monopoly.
Yeah,
effect.
look, I think the pricing structures should be a little simpler, but there is a lot of similarity. You've got networks with, I guess, limited capacity, so your pricing allocates that capacity on a sort of benefits or user pays basis, and it also tries to signal efficient use of that capacity, so peak pricing could become a feature. They're also obviously both volumetric services, electrons or H2O molecules. So there's probably going to be a variable component. So I can certainly see similarities. But yeah, simplicity is also good, both from a billing point of view and a consumer understanding point of view. If consumers can't understand pricing structures, they won't respond to them.
Okay, no further. Sorry.
Thank you,
Councillor Greenside. Sorry.
Certainly, Unison is one of the better of the 29 lines companies. We had, I think, your general manager in here after Cyclone Gabriel and explained to us how you had responded to that, and that was truly remarkable. I wanted to talk about it from a consumer point of view. because, as you say, with a monopoly, that is, I think, always one of the concerns is getting that information out and for people to understand pricing and so forth. You belong to Utilities Disputes Limited. Do you often have anything to do with them, or is it something that is just convenient for you to have?
Look, we do often have something to do with them. So we have 120,000 connections or customers, as well as obviously about 1,500 customers or new connections each year. And disputes can, I guess, range from just the day-to-day delivery of the service through to somebody, not happy with the experience of connecting to the network. We are required to make consumers aware of what's known as the scheme, utilities disputes, but we really do proactively encourage them to use that. As soon as a customer query, it becomes clear that it's more than a query, there is a dimension of disagreement or dispute here, we notify them that this is a dispute. We've got these obligations to try and work through it with you before it's escalated to utilities disputes, and if it's not, you're able to take it to utilities disputes, and then we work closely with them through their process to furnish them with the information they need to investigate and if necessary to adjudicate, and generally the outcomes I think are pretty balanced and in the interests of consumers, even if it's not always the outcome that some consumers expect in some instances.
Just carrying on from that consumer point of view, do you have a consumer advisory board or something similar that...
Great question.
Yeah.
And that's something where, we're in some ways taking a lead from councils. I think we've seen, councils have had to and are very effective at engaging on things like long-term plans. It hasn't been such a feature for telecommunications or electricity infrastructure providers, but the Commission has, I think, been moving in a direction where it's wanted to see that stakeholder input into those plans. So we've put in place a framework around that and are in the process of actually recruiting a standing panel in our different network regions. Previously, we've relied on, if you like, sort of one-off engagement around our plan each year, as well as ongoing surveys. But this will be, for the first time, a sort of standing consumer panel.
That's very useful, thank you, because I think that's something that probably we haven't even thought about or talked about at this stage, obviously, but when you're a monopoly, I think it is very important. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, and highly valued by the Commission. And sorry, just probably to add to both of the last two questions, or questioners, in terms of pricing, I think the one thing that hopefully will mean water pricing is less complex for consumers than electricity is you don't have retailers sitting in between your pricing and the consumer, because 20-something retailers rebundle, repackage, and at that point, it's quite hard for consumers, and hence the need in the electricity sector for comparison tools and things like that. So that's your one sort of, I think, saving grace of maintaining simplicity.
Yes, I think we're going to hear a lot more about that in the next few months leading up to the election. But Tony, you had a question.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, thanks, Jason. I really enjoyed your content here. Just curious as to when the regulation came along and what sort of resourcing across the teams or across the organisation did you have to scale up in order to satisfy some of those information disclosures, whether it be across finance or engineers or data capture? I'm just curious as to what sort of level of resourcing was.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a progressive journey. I would say the minimum, when you're entering into the regime is essentially, a full-time person in each of those sort of three areas. So your kind of information disclosure, your regulatory accounting, and your asset management, and a regulatory manager overseeing that, or a dedicated manager overseeing that. Over time, a business the size of Unison with 120,000 connections and $1 billion of assets under management, I would say, while it's not necessarily, if you were to just distill it into full-time roles, it would probably be around 10 people that are really the majority of their time or in aggregate are fulfilling the regulatory obligations of the business. But at the same time, particularly in that asset management space, it also means there's a benefit to the business in terms of more efficient investment and ultimately to consumers through that efficient investment, which means lower prices over time. So it's not all overhead, if that makes sense.
Okay, thanks, Jason. It's been a real eye-opener, I think, to us to realise some of the challenges of starting this new regime and the important notes around making sure our information and data is well set up and because that's your starting point and your benchmark. So, thank you very much. It's been very useful.
Thanks for the opportunity, and we've had good engagement with management here on just sharing our learnings, and we're available to sort of continue providing that sort of, if you like, sounding board or support in other ways, always happy to come and talk to council and any of its committees. So thanks for the opportunity.
Excellent, thank you, Jason. I'm sure you'll be called on again. I almost guarantee it. Hey, so we have a resolution to receive Jason's presentation, and would someone like to move that? Move Councillor Foreman, second Councillor Greenslade. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Excellent. So we'll move on from the murky world of electricity networks to stormwater, and welcome. Is it Phil's coming to speak to us? Trying to think how. So, welcome.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Phil Bird. I'm the Stormwater Asset Manager here at Taupō District Council, and I'm here to give you a brief overview of the stormwater activity and all the risks and challenges and rewards that are happening within that particular space. So as you can see there, the council own and maintain stormwater networks throughout the district. We maintain approximately 220 kilometres worth of stormwater pipe. We've got 3 pump stations, nearly 4,000 manholes within that, 50 plus detention ponds and other retention devices. We've got 14 what's called hydrodynamic separators and probably 240 plus catch pit devices, which are all there to control, manage and treat the stormwater that falls quite continuously around, apart from now when it's nice and sunny. With that, we do have some challenges and risks related to the stormwater activity. We've got a growing district, we've got water quality concerns, we're understanding our flood risks. Climate change is also obviously laying on top of that. We've got limited knowledge of the condition of our assets, and we're missing information around some of those assets. There's obviously legislative changes, and there's also issues with the understanding of the level of service that we deliver to residents. Quite often the expectation is that council will take all the stormwater and pipe it all away, when that isn't really the case. We can only design a stormwater system for a certain level of service or event. After that, we have to then manage where that excess water will go. So out of that, I've got 4 topics that I was wanting to cover today, which was our discharge consent renewal, which covers the water quality and volumes that we discharge throughout the district. I've got some information and some data about our stormwater treatment that we do. A little bit of an update on our overland flow paths and flood risks, and then some information around renewals and other emerging issues sort of relevant to the stormwater activity. So our stormwater discharge consent. So we've got currently 3 consents covering our stormwater discharge. They cover the Waikato River, the northern townships, and then the Turangi and southern surrounds. They relate to both existing development and potential new development. These were last granted in 2008, and initially they were due to expire on the 15th of June next year, 2027. Recent changes with the RMA and the new planning and built environment, they've now extended that consent through to 31 December 2027. So the initial plan was that we had to have our application in by November, end of November this year, to meet the 6-month requirement before expiry, but now obviously with the 6-month extension, that's something we'll just have to think whether or not we'll still be aiming for November or something else. So to help us in this process, we have engaged with some consultants. Timiro is the lead consultant with a number of 2 other firms, Morpham and Enviro Planning, to assist us in the process. This is a little bit of a timeline of what we've done and where we need to get to, and the little blue arrow is basically where we are at the moment. The initial work was involved a lot of desktop assessments just to figure out what information we had, understand how the discharges have been performing, the effects of those discharges. Those then produced what's called a Stage 1 report, which then was sent off to the Regional Council just to say this is how we understand the state of play. The majority of work this year has been undertaking sort of field work around ecology, hydrology and geomorphology and all that. A lot of site inspections around the district, and we're in the process of producing the Stage 2 reports, and these cover contaminant loads, volumes, the erosion, and that kind of thing. So with that discharge consent, there are a number of documents that need to be produced with it, not only the AEE and application, so this is catchment management plans, monitoring plans, stormwater network management plans, and stormwater operation and monitoring and maintenance plans. So there's quite a lot involved in all these. So the catchment management plans, they summarise the effects of current and future development on the receiving environments and determine enhancement and mitigation projects to manage them. The stormwater network management plan, that's a network plan that will be developed to outline and understand gaps in our management of the stormwater network and how we might close those gaps. The monitoring plan describes when, where and how we were going to monitor the ongoing effects of the discharges. And the operations management monitoring and maintenance plan describes how the various parts of the system will be operated and maintained. It's mainly around our different stormwater treatment devices, so that covers off the frequency of the cleaning, and maintaining, and when we do it, why we do it, and how we do it. So that kind of leads on to the stormwater treatment. So rainwater flowing over impervious surfaces is an effective pathway for contaminants to enter urban stormwater networks and then watercourses, aquifers or lakes. And the most common sources of contaminants in stormwater are kind of shown on that figure there, which are mainly likes of dog poo. That's a big one. A lot of it, that's E. coli loads. Contaminants from buildings. Those are the likes of runoff from the roofs. If you've got zinc or other type roofs, it'll wash the zinc and those sort of metals off into the stormwater. You get contaminants from industrial and commercial buildings. So this is where quite often trade wastes consents are also, we're kind of linked to ensure that commercial premises are managing their waste correctly and they're not overflowing into our stormwater networks, which we try to be as vigilant as possible on that, and we've had a couple of incidents lately where we've picked up where there's been that kind of contaminants. And then obviously there's sediments, and the sources of sediments can be from the roads or from building developments or subdivision developments, where you get runoff from those kind of works that then enter into the stormwater, get suspended and washed away. So where there is a number of different inputs into stormwater contamination, which we have to try and remove as best we can. So to sort of manage and treat the stormwater, Council has had an ongoing program to install stormwater treatment devices within our network. So to date, there's around 240 what's called gross pollutant traps, which sit inside the catch pits. So these are there to catch the water running off the road, filter out all the contaminants, hold them back before it's discharged further down the network. And there's a number of types in there, enviropods and storm sacs, which are more proprietary names, but they're basically achieving the same effect. So you can see on that slide that there was a picture of an enviropod. So this is a video of the recent stormwater treatment device that we installed in Turangi. It's called a Vortceptor. It comes from Atland. This is their video that they've put together, but it's got just some details around the scale of the work that was done and some information on how they work, and I can sort of explain it a little bit further if you want. So.
Here from Atland Stormwater, just out on site today with one of our Vortceptors that we've installed. So this is it here. This is what we call an offline system. Basically we had an existing stormwater line that ran through here that the council wanted to treat. So we've put in our diversion chamber here, which diverts water from the main stormwater line into this chamber, into our Vortceptor, which then gets treated back into the chamber and out. So we've just been on site today doing a modification due to a design change that had to be pulled out into the road. So we've just modified, put this cutout in there, which just shows how versatile these products are. We'll just show you down inside. So basically how it works, you can see your inlet chute down there, which funnels your water in and creates a vortex. Your water then goes out through a screen, and that captures all your big gross pollutants and any organic matter, things like that in here. And then you've got all your sediment which drops out into the bottom. And then you've got your access hole here, which you can put a sucker truck down in and clean out all your sediment. And here obviously you can suck out all your gross pollutants, anything that gets stopped going out into the wetland. Then that's your outlet there, which goes back into the diversion chamber and out. So basically this was a retrofit job for a existing stormwater line that ran into an underperforming wetland. So basically this is going to do all the heavy lifting for treating, taking any gross pollutants, silt, etc. out of the main line, keeping the wetland nice and clean.
Through the chair, can I just ask a question? No, how long have these things been around? I just kind of, I don't, maybe I wasn't listening at the time at uni, but I don't remember these things being around.
I guess something that's come in within probably, in New Zealand, probably 15 years or more, 20 years. There's been various devices, but it's obviously with increased focus on environmental income, effects, that there's been a lot more work done both nationally and internationally into treating of stormwater. So there's a lot more people offering these kind of devices. There's a lot of industry research gone into developing and improving the performance of these. So yeah, I mean, you know, like, I'm not sure how long they've been going on, but they've been installing one a year almost here.
And before that,
so that's 14 years. So they've been around at least 14 years, definitely longer.
And prior to that, it just all gushed out straight into the lake?
Prior to that, there was no treatment. Yeah.
And I'm just interested, are we taking the lead in this because we have fresh water, whereas coastal places, are they bothering with this?
Absolutely are.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of direction, or has been a lot of direction through regional councils about, you know, contamination and treatment of stormwater discharges, not just in the Waikato, but sort of nationally. And, you know, like I know for the likes of Auckland and Tauranga, they've also had strong direction and quite strong programs.
We say strong direction. Is this
from
regulated?
From the regulators.
We have to put these in.
Yeah.
And
I think it's doing the right thing to protect our environment. And while these devices can remove a lot of what's called gross pollutants and sediments down to a certain fraction, there is obviously other components of contamination that also need to be looked at.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there, what do you call it, monitoring at the output? The output.
We do monitoring around all the, well, I think the majority of our stormwater treatment devices we've got where we can. There's some places where we can't get access to the outfall just along the lake cliffs there, but a lot of the other ones we'll do both upstream and downstream of the treatment device, just to measure that effect. Yeah,
I was just interested if it was comparable to wastewater outflow monitoring. That's pretty strict, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, we have to undertake monitoring after rainfall at certain times of the year to measure the metals, the sediments, the oils.
But there's some you can't get access to. Is that a problem with the regulator? The regulator, is that a problem with the regulator No.
They understand the.
So stormwater is not taken as seriously, that's the best word, as wastewater outflow. If we had a wastewater outflow without monitoring, because we just said we couldn't get to it, I'm just guessing that might not be good enough for the regulator.
Yeah. Well, as I said, it's just in a couple of locations where we've got the treatment device on the top of the cliff, the outfalls at the bottom, so obviously we can't get down there to do it, but we've got 14 of them throughout the district, so it's...
But that's true, isn't it? Wastewater, that would not be...
Obviously wastewater has a higher contaminant load, but there is still, you get heavy metals and nutrients in stormwater discharges. While it's at lower concentrations, you're still getting high volumes, which over time do add up. So
I'm just wondering, are there penalties? Because for wastewater, if our outflow is above a threshold, are there penalties? Money, strict? Whereas
I think one of the challenges with wastewater is there's never been a strong regulatory environment, but there is now. I think it's becoming more and more. I mean, you only got to look at Auckland. Whenever they get rain, they've got half their beaches are closed. So the public is demanding a higher standard, and the regulators responded to that. So I think it's becoming more and more, and I totally agree, it's the right thing to do. Councillor Greenslade.
Yes, through the chair. Thank you very much, Jason. No, Phil. Jason's gone. We watched that with great fascination over a very, very long period of time, and it's very deceiving looking at that picture because it just looks like some little thing. It's not. It's absolutely massive. It's huge. Yes, and that video was fantastic because, of course, we couldn't see down in there and what was happening, and we were kept well away from it. So really great. I just wanted to ask you about what you do gather up. How do you get it out, and what do you do with it?
We clean them out via sucker truck. And generally speaking, you can get a man down in them. It's a confined space, so there's a lot of health and safety issues around doing that if they need to get down there to dig it out manually. But they are able to be cleaned via a sucker truck from above ground.
And how often would you do that?
At the moment, we do every 3 months, and they generally pull out around a tonne of sand or sediments out of each one.
Wow. Wow.
Every 3 months.
Every 3 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Gosh.
so that is then just taken to landfill.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Thank you. Oh, what's the cost?
A cost?
Yeah.
That unit costs $200,000 to buy. That wasn't install costs. So it obviously varies. This was designed to treat a 1 in 10 year storm, which is why it treats 530 litres a second, which is the quality flow for a 10-year storm, which is the level of service that we're trying to achieve. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Phil.
So the previous slides were all about mechanical stormwater treatment, but there is quite a focus nationally on what's called nature-based solutions. And so these are the likes of rain gardens, biofiltration beds and swales, and these have the dual purpose of enhanced stormwater treatment, and they also assist in slowing and detaining rainfall runoff and holding it back. So got a couple of examples there of the top right picture there, that's a rain garden. And then on the bottom left, that is a biofiltration bed that's supplied by a firm called Stormwater 360. That's a Filtera device, which is an engineered rain garden, basically. And those are got an engineered bed of filter material topped with bark and then planted. So, and then there's the little picture there is just the various examples of different nature-based solutions. So these have the added benefit of removing a lot of the sort of soluble or heavy metals and microplastics and other things like that. So you get a much more enhanced, and those are generally done as part of a 2-stage treatment. So we would have a mechanical treatment device that we've saw previously in front of that to capture all the gross pollutants, and then that water will then discharge through into this kind of treatment system and then filtered through before discharge to the environment. There is increasing direction right now from our regional council on this type of 2-stage treatment. certainly pushing that along quite hard.
Through the chair, yeah, through the chair. Just a question. So soak pits seemed like residential or even industrial roofs. Rather than loading up the stormwater system, is soak pits around here a go-to solution?
Soak pits are not a treatment, so they're just there to take water and soak it away into the ground rather than into a pipe network per se. And given the nature of the soils around here with pumice and that kind of very porous material, there's very little treatment effect from soakage into there. Because the treatment of these kind of devices is trying to use natural environment, bugs and the natural behaviour of soils to absorb, slow down and uptake, so the plantings and other things will uptake those nutrients. We know with the soils and pumice that we have around here, you can get very high soakage rates, so there's no retention within that soil profile, so the water and all the nasties with it basically just go straight through.
Oh, you mean, before it gets to the lake or waterways, isn't that filter enough?
No.
No?
No. So now we'll just go over to overland flow paths and floods. So this basically what is overland flow. So this is any flow that occurs above ground. It's not confined to rivers or streams, and it's flows over slopes, fields, roads, or any other surface where the water cannot be easily absorbed or piped away. And maintenance and protection of these overland flows paths is critical to minimise the effects of flooding. So we've got a few examples of overland flow. They're not all from the Taupō district. Hopefully that one will work. So this was a video taken in Mangakino back in February, showing overland flow through the roads. You can see there's areas there where the water's bubbling up out of the stormwater pipes because they're under capacity. And so that's just water that can't get into any other system and it's just sheeting away. So Council has been modelling or looking into overland flow paths and overland flow for quite a while. We have got the modelling that we have at the moment, we don't have confidence in that it hasn't been well directed or well managed. So while we're confident a lot around the extents of our flood overland flow areas, we don't have a lot of confidence in the other parts of it. So we've engaged another firm to undertake further modelling of overland flows and flood risks throughout the district. So this will be incorporating the effects of climate change, and when we're saying that, we're looking at the changing climate out to 2090, I think it is what we're looking at, with a plus 2.3 degree climate change factor on top of that, just to try and understand exactly how this the overland flow will be occurring now and what will happen in the future. So in a lot of areas, overland flow is kind of exacerbated by the stormwater network. We have some areas where the stormwater network is undersized, so we can't get all the water away, so that contributes to overland flows. And that was one of the areas that wasn't adequately covered in our previous modelling, which will be in our new modelling. So we will be able to model the effects of our stormwater network on how the overall overland flow paths will be working. So as far as renewals and emerging issues go, so as I said earlier, the condition of our assets is not well understood, but where we have, so what we're doing now is undertaking CCTV inspection of our stormwater networks to get a better understanding of the condition of it. One of the things that we've picked up is that there seems to be accelerated ageing in a lot of the newer pipes. Now this is from the mid-90s, early 90s. So when we look at the pipes that are 60 plus years old and compare it to the pipes which are 25, 30 years old, they're at the same condition. So the younger pipes are ageing quicker by around a factor of 2.5. So when you've got pipes which are, we were thinking are 80 to 100 years and we've got 50 or 60 years left, if they're actually accelerating, you know, aging 2.5 times faster, that can have an impact on our renewal profile. So, you know, as it says there, they don't make them like they used to. And I think this is, the 1990s was when they changed how they made them. They used to be like just poured down and then they went to what's called spun concrete. And I think it was a learning curve and everyone sort of, they were practicing, and we've got, you know, the results of that is this newer pipe made in the newer way is not performing as well as the older. So as I said, that could force a re-evaluation of our renewal profile, and there's going to have, well, I'm going to have to do more work in future to sort of work out what that might look like.
Through the chair, if it's not broke, don't fix it, is what you're saying. Yeah, right, and don't spend money.
Yeah. So the other thing that we've been picking up within the network are service strikes, and we've got some examples there on the bottom picture there of a power conduit, a water main, thanks Tom, and a fibre optic cable. So a recent, we've had about 9 kilometres of pipe just analysed just recently. And out of that 9 kilometres of pipe, we found 11 service strikes. So that's basically 1 every kilometre of pipe. There is a service strike of some nature. So that is, and that is probably from a lack of knowledge of our assets as far as where they are. If we don't quite know where they are, we can't avoid them. So if we go the next page here, this kind of highlights the issues that we've got. So made an assessment of the data that we currently hold within our asset database, and of that we have 11 pipes that have no diameter recorded. 1% of the pipes have no information at all other than we know they're there. 80% of pipes have no upstream inverts. 22% of pipes show a reverse fall, and that's probably where we don't have the inverts, but we think, yeah, we have. So there's obviously issues there, and 75% of the manholes have either missing lid levels, missing inverts, or both. So, you know, without quality data, quality decisions can't be made. So I think this is where there's got to have to be an increased focus to build up our knowledge of our assets.
Mayor John.
Well, I take it that's people thrusting conduit through, and is that a result of a loss of data from the old borough council days?
It's probably a mixture of that, and you know, inadequate records that were transferred to council. It's also a record. Some of these, there was, you know, quite a big drive a few years ago for putting in fibre, and quite often limited liability companies were stood up to drill the fibre in. They went round, drilled everything, and then they dissolved the company and wandered off. So, you know, there was a little less care that probably could have been taken, for sure.
And it's not worth, on some of the main pipes, using equipment, technology to plot where that is, stuff that we're missing, some of the more important ones, or it's just that's not cost effective way of...
We are working to improve our records. This is through the CCTV, and that's how we're picking up all these service strikes. When we have found them, we're going back to the service utility, whoever it is, to have those conversations with them about removing them. But quite often they will say you have to go to the company that did it, and if they've dissolved the company, it gets a little bit harder. But yeah, it's basically many years of not adequately recording the information, and that's a little bit of stormwater was always viewed as the poor cousin, the third wheel. Water and wastewater were more important, but as this shows, the data is important to prevent this kind of thing from happening.
Yeah, reverse fall sounds pretty serious. 22%. You're saying 22% of the network? 22% of the network is falling the wrong way.
This is what the data was telling us. In all reality, it probably isn't that, but it's because we don't have sufficient data to say yes or no.
Because that's saying it was installed wrong, doesn't it?
That would say that it was installed wrong.
Well,
yes,
that's
but yeah. But this is where the quality data comes into it. If we don't have the data, all we can say is 22% have reverse fall apparently.
And supervision from council, really, engineering supervision to assure that...
I don't think we want to start looking at so some of these are 90 years old, so no one in this room can... Councillor Foreman.
I was just wondering, your survey you're doing with the CCTV, is that going to cover off all of these missing data issues? And how long is it going to take?
No, it won't be collecting a lot of that. It's basically collecting condition data so that we can pick up the issues that I said about the accelerated aging of the pipes and service strikes and other miscellaneous impacts on the stormwater network. Where we're missing inverts and levels, that's a lot more intensive and expensive to do, so it's going to have to be managed how we might collect that additional data. It's not something that it's going to happen overnight, but it will have to.
So we currently don't have an actual plan to rectify these numbers?
Not yet. That's something, hopefully you'll see coming through in our activity plan and asset management plan.
Cool.
Thank you. Through the chair. When you talk about across the network, are there any areas that are obviously worse than others? I mean, I am aware that a lot of Turangi doesn't have stormwater at all, does it? And so, I mean, there's bad and not good, and you're accumulating data, but then there's non-existent, haven't got at all. So I presume that's a whole different issue and a problem for you, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. This is the network as a whole, all the data that we had. So I didn't break it down, or it wasn't broken down into specific areas. It's just we got a dump out of all the data, did a whole bunch of analysis on it, crunched all the numbers, and basically came out with that. This was all done as part of our stormwater network modelling, because we had to know how good our data was to help with that. So this was the output that came from it. Yeah.
Well, just through the chair, what's an invert?
That's the bottom of the pipe, or where you've got a manhole with the pipe coming in. That's the bottom, the exact bottom of the pipe where it enters. That's called the invert. So
when you say 80% of all pipe have no upstream inverts, sorry, what does that mean?
That means that we've got a pipe, it goes from there to there. We don't know what that upstream invert is, so we don't know what the grade is.
Oh.
So, that then means we're uncertain about what its depth is below the ground at any point along there. So that's kind of why some places we've hit the drillers have hit the stormwater, because we haven't quite known where it is. nearly done. This is just covering off some of the sort of legislative changes that we've got from Local Water Done Well and the Water Services Act. So that's imposing sort of new requirements on us, which includes publishing maps of our service networks. We need to prepare a stormwater network risk management plan. We have to undertake an assessment of our stormwater and wastewater services by July 2029. There's also new national engineering design standards which are currently in a rollout phase. So those are an attempt to ensure that there's uniform design standards across the country for not just stormwater but the whole entire Three Waters network. And that also imposes new requirements around asset data and collection and what's called metadata standards to ensure that the data that we're collecting on all our assets is consistent. And the other primary thing coming out, which is from Taupo-Kaingaroa, although they haven't put any time frame on it, is that they're suggesting, or they may produce stormwater standards, and there's a little bit of uncertainty about what that will cover. That concludes my. If anyone's got any further questions, happy to answer.
Who's
Through the chair,
over
the only thing I wanted to say was, well, a couple of things really. Number one is, are we any different to anyone else in the country, or are we sort of all in the same boat? Yeah.
I would say we're probably on a par with a lot of, as far as stormwater networks go.
Yeah.
There's obviously in the water and wastewater, there's been a lot more effort put into it, but
for stormwater, it's looking a bit, it's aspirational. And one of the things from the man from Unison said, which I thought was really interesting, you know, if you don't have the data, say so. And, you know, sort of don't be shy about it, and make sure that, you know, the regulators know that this is a situation, which I thought was a really important point, actually, because I suppose all of us are shy about saying, actually, it's not how it should be, and the date's come and gone, and we still haven't done it. But, say so.
I think too, Phil's comment about that stormwater's been the poor relation, poor cousin, that's showing through in a lot of the data. I think when you look at what happened in Auckland with the storm events there, I mean, there was overland paths that have been built on for the last 20 years and caused a huge amount of angst. So that's one of the challenges. While the focus has been on wastewater because of the contaminant levels, it's becoming a new focus now as people's expectations improve. But thank you, Phil. Appreciate your presentation. Tony, did you want to?
Through the chair. Oh, sorry, Councillor Foreman. I'm happy.
Sorry.
I've still got one question.
Apologies.
I wonder what you've done so far, how much of the issues, I guess, are related to the lake level being high, or have you found any?
I haven't found any to date.
So.
No.
Good to know.
Good point.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, I just wanted to thank Phil for his presentation. And Phil does a lot of work here. He doesn't just wait till it rains to do his work. So he's constantly slaving away. And as you can see, there's quite a significant shift in stormwater from not only our regulator, the Regional Council, and what a new consent will look like. We know there's going to be a lot more stringent quality requirements. So it's about understanding what that is and preparing for those things through our AMPS and our water services strategy. So there's a lot of catch up, and certainly take your point, Councillor Greenslade, around being open and transparent, honest with our other regulator, the Commerce Commission, when we get to that point. But yeah, thanks, Phil.
Great. Okay, there's a resolution there that we received that report. Moved Councillor Greenslade, seconded Councillor Taylor. All those in favour? Okay, it's carried. Okay, we'll keep tracking on. We've got another presentation on SCADA, so I gather there's Julian and Mike. Welcome. And this continues our bombardment of We've done 3 of the waters now, so I don't know how many more there are, but the SCADA, of course, is a pretty critical part in it.
Through the chair, there may be questions.
What's that?
We might be asking questions later.
Yeah. Welcome.
We're good. SCADA, yeah. SCADA systems. So I guess that's right. We talk about water, wastewater, stormwater, and we have water, wastewater, stormwater asset management plans, and we do all these things. But SCADA sort of sits behind the scenes, and I guess that's been part of the problem with it. Is that it's our systems have been built up over time organically, and we've got a bit of work to do. But so I'm joined by Julian, who's a recent addition to our team. He's come on board as our automation and electrical engineer, which is a new role. And I guess it's a new role because we've recognised that there's some focus and attention needed on our SCADA systems. I guess we started a bit of a review late last year, and it's pretty apparent that we've got functioning systems and we've got new sites that you might have been to the Kinloch water plant recently, or Omori, and there's all this shiny new stuff. There's also lots of old assets in our network, and the demands on our asset data, drinking water standards, we've got to provide quality data every minute to the regulator across all our schemes, about water compliance. So there's increasing demands on all our systems. And we've had great support from external contractors, but doesn't replace the need to have some good internal management, and that's why Julian's joined us. So I don't really want to say too much about what we're doing because Julian's going to go through all the interesting stuff, and it's better you ask him the questions than asking me.
How do I get my presentation on the screen?
Try the other port, that always works.
All right, good afternoon. Well, thanks for the introduction. My name is Julian. I'm the new automation and electrical engineer within the council, and I'm responsible for the SCADA and telemetry systems. And a few weeks ago, Mike and Sarah asked me if I could do a brief presentation on what a SCADA system actually is. So, well, I made a presentation. I'm going to cover 3 parts. So, I'm going to tell you what a SCADA system is, how we use it within the council, and what the current state of our presentation is, our SCADA system is. Hang on. Yeah, so first, what is this, if we're talking about SCADA, what is a SCADA system? Well, the word SCADA is an acronym for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. So that's basically what a SCADA does. It supervises all kind of automated processes. It allows operators to control a process, change set points, and it collects and stores a lot of data which you need for control and compliances. To break it a little bit down, within the district area we have roughly 15 townships, and most of the towns have a drink water plant, there's a wastewater plant, but there are also a lot of pump stations, we have reservoirs, there is radio and internet connections, we have land disposal sites, and all of those sites require SCADA to operate. If you even break it further down, if you go to, well, say a wastewater site, you will find sensors which collect data, we have filters, we have valves, pumps, we have all kind of equipment on a site, and what SCADA basically does is it brings all the components together and create it into a system. So you can see it a bit of as a pyramid. We have one SCADA system, but within that system you have thousands of connected pieces of hardware, tens of thousands of control points on those hardware, and millions of data points. So it becomes really big and really complex really quickly. So yeah, what does a SCADA system do? Well, if you look to the council, a few of the main goals we have is we want our drink water to be safe, we want our wastewater to be as clean as possible, we want our operators to be able to control our sites, and we need to prove that we are compliant. And SCADA is right in the middle of that. SCADA is the critical piece of infrastructure which makes it possible to achieve the goals. So how do we use SCADA within the Taupo district? Well, and I looked this up, our council, the area is almost 7,000 square kilometers. And within that area we have 15 drink water sites, 11 wastewater sites, we have almost 200 pump stations, 126 reservoirs from small to big ones. But it's in total 337 of sites which require SCADA to operate. And it's all connected, and we use a broad amount of communications protocols to bring all the data back. How does it actually look like? Well, most of the time you refer to SCADA on different levels. This is one of the higher levels. You have a completely equipped workstation. This is the drink water site here in Taupō. So you have a lot of screens. You can see what's going on, what the set points are. You can see log files, so how the SCADA performed over time. You can see alarms. You can log on to remote sites. So from a workstation, you can really get an overview of everything within the district, what is going on. If you go a level down to a remote site, for example, you have something we call an HMI. You have a local screen telling you for the specific site how the site is running, you know, pumps which are running, pumps are at fault. But on every specific site we have this, and you can see how the site is performing. If you go even a further level down, we have cabinets. This is a cabinet standing next to a bore, and within a cabinet you have an electric cabinet housing all your equipment you need to run your site. And if you look really closely into a cabinet, you see all the equipment you need. You see all the wires coming in with input-output signals. You can see a controller. It's the black and green device on the right in the middle. You can call it a heart of your SCADA system. It connects everything. It controls your set points. It triggers an alarm. So yeah, you can, if you go to the bottom level, well, this is a pump station. You have your pumps. You have two small ones, two bigger ones, and you can operate these pumps. And if you remember the first picture, the big workstation, you can log on to these pumps. You can see which pumps are running. You can see the alarms. You can see the set points. No, there it is. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically how we are using SCADA. The main part of my presentation, how is our SCADA system performing? Before I continue, I need to say most things are going pretty good. We have operators who are really capable in using SCADA and know how it works. We have contractors out there doing maintenance and upgrades and making sure the system works as it should be. But on the other hand, if you zoom out a little, we have some real issues within our SCADA systems. And well, I want to address the four biggest we have. And the first one is we have problems with compliance, as Nicola told the last time. And most of the times it's caused by data losses because of our SCADA systems. And there's a multiple of reasons why we lose data, the communication issues. We have different SCADA platforms in place who, well, they don't communicate as well as they should. So there's a various reasons, but it has to do with this kind of problems. And one of the biggest issues is we have aging hardware and software on our sites. We have sites, we have really modern sites, especially the drink water sites. We did a lot of upgrades and modern systems running them. but also, well, especially wastewater sites, we have a number of sites who are running on software which is over 10 years old. For example, that was when we had Windows 7 on our computers. Well, we still have sites running software out there from that area. Not only are they old, but we also have multiple versions, so we have communication issues and you get driver issues. And we have hardware on a number of sites which is really old, sometimes over 15 years old. And that's a big issue because if you have a computer being over 15 years old, and as long as it's running, it's running, but as soon as it crashes because of a power failure, we can have real problems because, you can't restart an old computer, so you have to do, and we have backups, but then you have to install old software on new hardware, and that can cause all kinds of problems. So it could be very well be you need to do an on-the-spot migration to a new SCADA system, and that could easily take 1-2 weeks. So all the time, that would mean that all the time your site is offline. And, for example, if it's a wastewater site, you need operators on site 24/7. Your SCADA is offline, so you're not collecting data, so you're not compliant. You have risks of need to discharge untreated sewage water to a lake or the reservoir or the river. And if it would be a drink water site, again, no SCADA, no data, no compliance. You can't prove the water is safe. So, these are real issues. Another issue, I will touch this one very briefly, but because we have old SCADA systems in place and multiple versions, we trigger a lot of false alarms. So our operators, for example, they can get a text at 3 a.m. that, a pump has started, which isn't an alarm, but, the operator is awake and sometimes has to acknowledge the alarm. So, and this happens over and over, and sometimes hundreds and hundreds of alarms on a day. And the other big risk is if you have a real critical alarm, for example, if a server goes offline and the operator misses it, that can have big implications. And one of the last one is that we have asset data, but we don't have a full overview of what we have. So we have a partial oversight of what kind of controllers are running on what sites. And we don't keep track of software at all. So we don't really know what kind of platform exactly is running. So, and this is really hard if you want to start doing migrations and bring sites up to specs. You don't want to be in the same spot in 10 years' time as where you're at now. So before we do anything, first we have to make sure we have a proper asset management data in place. How to move forward? I think this is the best part of my presentation. We have several goals. The first one is, I showed you the pyramid with the SCADA platform. We don't have one pyramid in place, but we have, at least 4. So we are going to make a choice for a SCADA platform, which kind of infrastructure are we going to use, and then we're going to make plans to do all 300 plus sites to migrate into that SCADA platform. We have standards in place, but they're not always up to date or lacking them. So we are in the process of making standards for electrical designs, but also naming conventions, and also the way we work with our contractors. Whether it's CapEx or OpEx contracts, we are going to standardize the way we work with them. I briefly referred to this one. We are setting up a SCADA asset management system. So, we want to make sure we don't, in 10 years' time, you don't have old software again. And we're going to do alarm rationalization. So we want to make sure that if the operator gets an alarm at 3 a.m., I can't prevent that, but it's going to be a real one. So not a pump started, but if you have a pump failure, that's a real alarm. So that are our plans. Why should we do this? I think the most important one is at the moment we're not compliant, and I don't believe that's an option. That's optional. So we have to make sure we bring our SCADA systems up to date, and we can make sure we're compliant. We have high cost at the moment using different SCADA system. You have different licenses, platforms, so that's quite expensive. If you have a system failure, and well, you need 24/7 operators on site, it's really expensive. And if you have a big calamity and you have to replace your hardware on the spot, that's always way more expensive than if you can plan your renewals. So the benefits would be we're going to be compliant, we're going to be in control, we have planned renewals, so no surprises, and our infrastructure is going to be fit for purpose. So to summarize, well, I think SCADA is really critical infrastructure, and not being in control of your SCADA system means you're not in control of your processes, and you're not being compliant. I think we have real risks out there because of the old hardware and software, but we are making plans to improve it and start migrations. So I think planned investments are essential. Any questions?
I'm sure there'll be a question or two. I suppose, alarm bells for me. First up, I think that it's and really the plan in place I think is good, but really what is the timing around that? Because to me, your SCADA operates your whole system, and as you said, around the compliance so timing of getting these improvements in place and working.
Yeah, I can comment a little bit on that. I guess Julian's job was to scare you just enough, which it sounds like he's done. So it's which is great. So we started this looking at this quite a lot of detail start of this year, and so we have identified basically 8 work packages that we've started to work through, and those are our standards, our governance, roles and responsibilities. SCADA's always kind of sat between things, it's sat a bit with IT and a bit with our operations, and we haven't had that dedicated, focused person to own this and do this asset management planning and standards planning. And so we've, I guess the start of this journey has already begun. We've identified these 8 work packages. We've got some resource on board to start working through this. We've got some external consultants helping us work through this as well. But really what we're trying to do is get as much information as we can together to help inform this next planning round that we're about to enter into, and it's obviously the second half of this year we're getting into those discussions. And it's not that we're not working on it now as well. We're working on all of these things as we go, but obviously we're going to need some investment over the next wee while to get a lot of this stuff up to scratch and modernised, and so you can expect to see some plans come through when we start this next round of water services strategy.
I suppose my second question alongside that, Mike, so you're happy that you're able to manage the risk of this with on-site management in the meantime as you invest?
Well, we haven't had major calamities to date, so things are working.
Yeah.
We do have some, data loss, like Nicola and Julian have alluded to, which means compliance reporting gets difficult on some areas. Some of our new modern plants, we don't have this problem. Older ones, more problem. It's just a risk. It's not to say anything's going to fall over and go wrong tomorrow, but we're vulnerable in some areas. Yeah.
But it's 10 years easily.
Yeah.
Sorry.
After the chair, I was just going to add to that one. I mean, you look at the investment that council's made across our treatment plant upgrades. They've all come with new SCADA reporting telemetry systems, so we're comfortable in some areas. Yet we know that we've got some legacy issues, and certainly the team identifying what those are, and then it's simply a case of managing that with our operations team and our contractor.
Yeah, so in layman's terms, just if you can explain, what is the problem this is supposed to be fixing, and sounds like it will cost a fair whack. How much will it cost? And if it's so that's the first big question. The second question, I suppose, is okay. If apparently we're doing it for compliance reasons, are there other options we looked at?
So I'll attempt to answer, and maybe Julian can step in if he feels he can add to it. So answer your second question first. The cost, I guess we're already bearing the cost in our normal activity. You know, we're replacing hardware, and we're as we build new capital plants, we're upgrading SCADA systems. So we are already sort of tackling this, but not in a it's not in a planned way. It's more happening organically as projects happen. And what does it mean? So, for example, if our water plants are pretty new, like our new membrane plants have just been commissioned, but I'll just use it as an example. If the PLC that's driving those plants was to fail because it was old, that's controlling, you know, there's hundreds of sensors and pumps and things. You can't possibly operate that to the same level manually. But what you could do would be to operate your main water pump, bypass your plant and get water to the reservoir. You can do that manually, you know. So you can generally keep things going without good SCADA, but you're going to lose a lot in between, you know. And if I use our wastewater treatment plant as an example, that's a really simple plant because it's pretty old, our main one. But you know, you're not going to be optimizing and automating things. You're going to have people sitting there flicking switches to turn things on and off. Is the tank getting full? Turn it on. You know, it's that kind of the SCADA's the automation and the data capture and the brains. If you don't have that, you're very manual and time consuming.
Also, so we're saving staff. If we didn't have SCADA before there was a SCADA, we just had to have more staff.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I guess the complexity of things has got a lot more, you know, is elevated now too. 40 years ago, you didn't have membrane water treatment plants with very precise needs for chemical dosing and telemetry, you know, turbidity monitoring and fluoride and chlorine monitoring, all these types of things. It was, you know, much more basic time. You know, you had a pump and a float or a flow meter, and that was about it. You know, the things become more complicated and over time.
And how much is it going to cost?
We'll deliver that to you when we've got some good numbers. But this is part of what we're building up to supply as part of the water services strategy.
Well, I presume SCADA is a off-the-shelf product.
SCADA's been around for a long time,
Yeah,
councillor, and very few councils don't use it. I think the way to answer your question is the first presentation today, when Julian really Justin really pushed the importance of accurate data to establish your benchmark that you're going to be measured against by the regulator. Well, you couldn't physically do this without technology being used, and SCADA is the technology of choice here.
And SCADA isn't one thing. It's not one package that you buy. It's the amalgamation of
it works on a lot of levels.
Sensors, communications, PCs, PLCs.
But is SCADA a trade name, a trademark? Is it a company,
No.
the SCADA company?
You can see it
Through
as
the
an
chair.
operating system.
I think, sorry, just to jump in there, I think through the chair, one thing we have talked about as a Water Services Committee is maybe getting out to one of our plants so that we can give you a really good visual interpretation of what SCADA is, how it operates, and it's just an umbrella name really of multiple different functions across a plant, whether it's pumps, whether it's chemical dosing, whether it's alarms and everything in between.
Yeah. So one way to think of it, another name for SCADA in a way is called OT. We have IT, which is our information technology, you know, our laptops, our screens, everything that's, you know, we all know what IT is. SCADA we call OT, which is operational technology, and it's a vast number of devices and communications, and it's not one thing. IT isn't one thing, OT isn't one thing, it's
Okay, I think I get it. Sort of. A bit more than before.
Councillor Foreman, did you?
This was gone over, and I have to go and do school pickup in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm mindful if I leave though, will it mean quorum is? So you'll be okay if I leave? Okay.
Yeah, okay. Are there any, I'm conscious the next item's quite an important one. So if there's no further questions, we'll resolve to accept this report on SCADA. So thanks, team. Really appreciate. So there's a resolution there that we receive that report on the SCADA control systems. Someone happy to move that? Move Councillor Foreman, seconded Councillor Greenslade. All those in favour, against, carried. Okay, well, Councillor Foreman's still with us. The next one is quite an important item on the audit, question of audit of the water services strategy. So welcome, Kendall, to the table here. So we're looking forward to getting your advice.
Okay. No, thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. So yes, this was late onto the agenda. Essentially, this paper is we're seeking the committee's recommendation on whether or not to engage the audit office to audit the water services strategy. Now, the audit is optional unless we are requested by the Secretary of Local Government. We haven't received a request to date, and the deadline, if we want to engage audit, is the 30th of June this year. So this requirement came through with the Water Services Act, so it's new, as is the Water Services Strategy. They're both new regulatory requirements. This process in the Water Services Strategy, it's continuing to evolve, and I would say it's fair to say that we and the wider sector are learning as we go, particularly the links between the Water Services Act and also the regulatory oversight by the Commission. The Commerce Commission, sorry. So just a few things that I think I haven't put in the paper, and I'm just conscious of that, is in the Act it does describe what the report by the Auditor General must comment on, and it's bulleted into two things. It's whether the strategy gives effect to the purpose of the Water Services Strategy, and the quality of the information and assumptions underlying the forecast information provided in the strategy. I think it's just needing to be aware that while it is summarised into 2 points there, the detail of an audit is much more than what is there. There is a lot of work that goes into the audit of such a plan if we compare it to our long-term plan that we've done for many years. The other really interesting thing there as well, and like the like the LTP, the audit is based on the forecasting information. I do mention in the paper that after the Water Services Strategy is adopted, the audit of disclosures would be undertaken by the Commerce Commission, and that's based on the actual information. So there's just a bit of difference there in terms of forecast information through the audit of the Water Services Strategy and then looking at that. But I will stop.
No, that's right. Could I just interrupt, Ken? So, Councillor Foreman, did you want to add some thoughts before you leave?
After hearing Jason's conversation about data, I was starting to lean more towards the yes, but then after the last couple of conversations, it sounds like staff have a really good hold on the information we don't have, and everything else probably should have already been picked up by the DIA process anyway, and our long-term plan is still being audited. So I'm trying to work out why would we bother. I'm sitting so far as a recommendation not to, but I'm happy for the rest of the committee to discuss. But for me, I can't see why we would put that cost onto our annual plan when it's not budgeted for, and I don't see a reason to do it.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Have you got more you want to present to us? I just was conscious that Councillor Foreman needed to leave, so I wanted to get her view.
I saw the bag being packed.
Yeah, thanks. But carry on if you've got more you.
No, that's all right. It was just kind of where I thought there were some gaps in that. I just wanted to bring that to the table. But yes, I'm happy to take any other questions. And
so I've got Councillor Taylor and then Councillor.
It's not so much your question, it's more when we get to discussion, but I'm happy if you're happy to receive a comment now. But
Yeah, well, I think everyone needs to we need to form a collective view.
So, well, through you, Chair, my view is we are one of only 22 councils in the whole country who have been able to go independent.
Yep.
And the level of scrutiny on the water services delivery plan that the team have put together was such that it enabled us to do that, having been scrutinised by Taumata Arawai, DIA and the Commerce Commission, and having 3 ticks there, and we're early in the delivery of that, and this committee has only been meeting for a very short time. I fail to see the benefit of a 4th entity, and no disrespect to the Auditor General's office, but we've had pretty tight scrutiny already. I'm really comfortable that we're on solid ground. So it's a no from me.
Duncan?
Well, I mean, we haven't developed our strategy yet, have we? And the date of that was, what was it?
The water services strategy is adopted on the 30th of June, the same time you'll adopt your long-term plan.
Well, we haven't. Have we seen the strategy? I'm thinking.
No,
we haven't seen
no,
it yet.
No,
so
you've seen the water services delivery plan, which was Joe's project, and as Councillor Taylor indicated, that plan itself was scrutinised by several other regulatory organisations, including the Commerce Commission and Department of Internal Affairs.
No, I was okay. So I was just interested in affordability. If say we did get it audited, would they be looking in any way or form at affordability for the community of the strategy? That's the thing they're auditing, or is that something outside their realm of?
As I said, they're looking at the quality of information we're giving them. Affordability would be part of that, but also that it's forecast information. And again, the audit after the water services strategy is adopted, we move into what we call our disclosures, and the Commerce Commission putting a level of scrutiny over that investment and that affordability for the customer at that point in time as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose in my mind anyway, affordability is something this committee is supposed to be assessing through our own framework of comparing options. It's kind of our I see that as our responsibility, and we haven't even started.
No.
Really, we've only, I mean, so it's kind
There's
of
nothing to audit. I agree with you.
That's kind of my point of view.
Yeah.
And as I was going to say, similar to your long-term plan process, the water services strategy, we will be bringing you all of that information on the water's activities, so the stormwater, wastewater and water, and you will be looking at what is in there and making trade-offs and options and things like that as you develop that water services strategy for the community. Yeah.
Just to be crystal clear, the decision is about deciding to request an audit that wouldn't happen until end of January-ish after we've... Yeah, if that was the case. So it's not about auditing anything in the next few months, because obviously we haven't developed it yet, but it's just kind of because of the way the process works, you have to plan that far ahead.
I'm picking up a flavour.
I'm happy to move it, Chair, that the Taupo District Water Services Committee recommends to Council that it not engage the Audit Office to audit Council's water services strategy.
Seconded by Councillor Taylor. I think the only comment I would add at some future point, you're going to be strongly audited by the Commerce Commission, and probably that needs to be backgrounded into our decision, that actually we're seeing a high level of auditing through government regulatory agencies now and through our service delivery plan that was approved by DIA. So I think that needs to add to that resolution if the mover and seconder are happy, just so it's not saying we're just saying no. We're saying no against the background of a strong level of auditing that's already
Well, it's no for
happened.
this year. It's no for 2027.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not in perpetuity.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, to add to that, Chair, it's a conditional no, and it's on the basis of what we've already been through to get to where we are now. And if you look at the the cost savings. Audits don't come cheap anyway.
Yeah.
And I guess we're going to benefit from the additional cost for that.
Yeah, totally agreed. So, okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Kendall. And the last item on our agenda is our performance report. So, Joe.
In the interest of time, we'll take that report as read,
Yep.
but if you've got any questions for either Sarah or I of any of the items in the report, happy to take them.
The only question I had, and I think it's just a general thing, probably in Tony's court too, I see you're looking at the procurement of your next contract and just making sure that, obviously in a background of potential change, that forming these long-term contracts, that there are flexibilities for some of them that are not going to run the distance, that the ratepayer's not going to have to meet early end costs, would be the red flag I saw.
Chair, can I just add to that question, because that was also one of my questions. I thought we were talking procurement with Waikato Water as well too, and I wondered if that came under the procurement discussions that we had with them, because it's a standalone comment, and I certainly agree with the Chair. I was really concerned to look at something 10 years. I mean, 4 I can cope with, but 10 I was very uncomfortable with.
Yeah, through the Chair. Certainly, I can put your mind at rest, Councillor Greenslade. The team have been looking at this and obviously take into account the climate and the environment that we're in, as well as moving towards. So that when we're looking at renewing maintenance contracts, we're looking at a 4-year and then a 2+2+2. So we've got mechanisms within any future contract in order to review it through this process. But obviously at the same time though, any contractor needs a certain element of certainty in order to make it viable for them to get themselves established and operate. So, take it on board. The team have already done some good work around that. And in relation to Waikato Waters, if you recall, when we signed off our water services delivery plan, we said that there was a 2-year review period as well as exploring shared services options. So that's something obviously still in front of our mind as well.
Who is our current contractor for this?
Current contractor is Downer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just a question about the maintenance contract. I'm just interested in how you're assessing value for money between the different tenderers. You're not just taking the lowest complying. I mean, it'll be weighted attributes, I'm guessing. But my question is really about value for money. How are you measuring that between them?
Yeah, so through the Chair, there's a number, as you note, weighted attributes, and we are looking at a number of attributes. Price, obviously, is an important one, but as well the, track record of delivery is another, for example. So there's a number of attributes that we will be looking at. We've already gone through a registration of interest process, which is the first phase with 5 providers, and then we are going to be moving into the next phase, which is with 4 providers. But it's certainly a very detailed evaluation that we undertake to ensure that that network provider can provide a really effective and cost effective and efficient service and meet our levels of service.
Thank you, Sarah. So are we currently at the end of our long previous contract, 10-year contract?
It was in the paper, wasn't it?
Was it?
Correct.
But we're at the end of a 10-year contract going into this one.
We have 1 more year on the Downer contract, so we have a contract in place until 30th of June next year, but we would be looking to go out with this contract very shortly, because we need to provide about 6 months if there was another provider coming in to take on that contract, because they would need to mobilise
and establish their resource, if that were the case.
Any questions? Oh, yeah. Thanks for your report. Again, very thorough, and I always go to my red boxes and check out the risks. So I don't see any change there, so that's good. But have you got anything you'd like to add to the report, Tony? Okay, if that's all, thank you both for, again, a lack of question shows the depth of your report, so that's well done. So there's a resolution there that we receive the performance report. Someone like to move that? Councillor Greenslade, seconded. Councillor Taylor, all those in favour? Against? Carried. So thank you everyone. Those are three pretty meaty presentations to go through, so that was excellent. Thank you for all your input, and we'll just close the meeting with a karakia.